So just this week, the Claude team have released Routines, a massive upgrade to the scheduling feature that runs your prompt on Anthropic's cloud infrastructure with custom connectors, environments, and triggers them on a schedule via a post request or a GitHub event like creating a PR. But does this really mean the end for AI workflow tools like N8N? And how expensive will this actually be? Hit subscribe and let's get into it. It looks like Anthropic are releasing more and more features that make use of their cloud infrastructure, from managed agents to Ultraplan, and now this routines feature that adds 3 ways to run tasks in Claude Code: loops to run in-session tasks, schedules to run tasks at regular intervals on a specific date or time, locally or remotely, and now routines, which includes schedules. So this introduced remote schedules, but also adds GitHub event triggers and API post calls. Let's go through how it works by running through 2 examples. The first task is to create a simple automation that gets data from 3 newsletters and gives me the best articles in Slack every day at 9 AM. And the second one is to automatically review pull requests as soon as they're created, adding inline comments with suggestions for improvements. Let's see how we can do these with routines. So I'm going to do the first routine in the terminal via Claude Code, and we can do that using the /schedule command. And from here, we can continue through the steps to create our own routine. So if I hit create new, it's going to ask me a few more questions. Or what I'm going to do instead is, because I already know what I want, I'm just going to write the schedule / command, followed by a prompt for the routine I want to create. So create a daily 9 AM trigger that fetches RSS from JS Weekly, React Status, Node Weekly, and picks 10 good articles for YouTube videos to send me via Slack. And from here, Claude sets this up with a time zone, environment, with a draft prompt. So once that's done, it creates a remote trigger by default, which I can view in the browser or in the Claude app. Now, I'm sure if I wanted to, I could create a local trigger, but for now, let's take a look at the remote routine. And here it is under the routines option. I can click on it to see that it repeats every day at 9 AM and has used my Slack connector with the instructions from Claude Code. Now, there are a few things that it's done that I'm not a fan of. First of all, it automatically connected a GitHub repo, which is unnecessary for this specific routine. So I'm going to change that by removing it from here. And also I'm going to edit this prompt to tell it not to use horizontal rule dividers, since they cause invalid block validation errors inside Slack. It's important to note that before you start creating a routine inside Claude Code, you need to have your connectors already. And also make sure that you write a prompt in such a way that it doesn't need to ask for permissions, since this runs autonomously, kind of in a hands-off mode. Luckily, Claude Code has automatically written the prompt for me, so I don't have to review it. Now, before I continue with this prompt, it's important to note that I've used the newsletters environment instead of the default one. And the reason for this is because I've done this before and I know what went wrong. But in all seriousness, these URLs, so this RSS for JavaScript Weekly, React Status, and Node Weekly, are URLs that Claude wouldn't allow the Bash tool to run curl on or to fetch from, because it has a security layer that prevents all outbound network requests for Bash. So in order to get around that, I created a new environment by clicking here, changed to custom, and added the list of allowed domains. If you use the web fetch tool instead of Bash for fetching web information, then that doesn't have that restriction, because these calls are going through Anthropic's infrastructure. So I'm sure they have some extra security to make sure no prompt injection is happening. Okay, now that we're done with this, I'm going to hit close and do a test run of this routine. So now the workflow has started. We can see it over here, and we can click here to see exactly what's going on. So here it clones the repo if there is one, but because there isn't, it's just set up the cloud container, and it started to fetch the RSS feed. So it's done it for all 3 URLs using the Bash curl tool, and it seems like it's hit DNS issues, so it's fetching with the web fetch tool anyway, but it's good to know how to use this approach. It's getting the latest articles for the newsletters, and it seemed to have failed on Node Weekly, even though when I tested this earlier, it worked before. Okay, so now it's found the top 10 articles that would be great for a YouTube video, and if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see it sent the message to me in the newsletters Slack channel. So if we go to Slack, we should see the message in the correct channel with a link to all the articles, which is very nice. Now, this brings us on nicely to how routines are priced. So right now, routines are in research preview and can only be used with a Pro, Max, Team, or Enterprise subscription, and draw from your subscription usage limits the same way an interactive session would. However, routines have an additional daily cap, which if we look at what it is for a Pro subscription, we can see over here, it's 5 routines per 24 hours. So I think this is Anthropic's way of preventing you from running loads and loads of routines every day, or to kind of gauge how much people are using routines on their infrastructure to make sure too many resources are used. But this test routine run that I've made just now doesn't count towards my 5 daily limit. So I can prove that to you by running the exact same routine again, and we can click here to see that there have been 2 runs. So I'm going to close this sidebar here. I'll let this go for a bit. And now that it's going, I'm going to ask it to stop. And once it's stopped, we can see that 2 routines have run, so they've been triggered manually, but I still have only 1 routine used in my daily limit. Now I'm going to create the next routine inside the Claude Desktop app, and I'll explain why in a few moments. But you can already see that it's over here. I created it earlier, but let me show you how I did it. So first I clicked on routines over here, which you can probably guess. And then I clicked new routine, a remote one. I gave it a name and a prompt. And because this routine is to automatically review a pull request as soon as it's created, I selected a repo for it to view pull requests from, in this case, my .files one. From here, we can see we have 3 trigger options: schedule, GitHub event, and API. From Claude Code CLI, you can only do schedule. So if you want to run GitHub event or API, you'd have to use the desktop app, and that's why we're using it here. So I'll click GitHub event, and when a PR is opened. So we'll hit add trigger, and we'll close the existing connectors. Now, this is pretty much how I created that routine, but with one major tweak. I added my own custom skill, which I got from this repo. Now, because Claude Code in the cloud creates a new instance of Claude Code, it doesn't have access to your local skills or settings or hooks. So if you want to give it access to that, you need to do so through a repo, and I've done it through this routine env repository. So inside this, I have a .claude folder, which all it contains is a settings JSON file and my PR review skill, which I want to use in that routine. And all this does is it triggers a hook. So if we go back to Claude and hit on settings JSON, all that does is triggers a hook to make sure that this repo exists inside the Claude Code cloud instance. So that's the routine env repo, and copy all the skills from that repo into the Claude skills directory inside the cloud version of Claude. So if you close this and open my actual routine, then take a look at the prompt, you can see I've got some extra guardrails in place to make sure that this actually happened. Now I've already run this to test it, and I had some issues. So let's try it again, and hopefully it will work first time. So inside my .files repo, I'm going to create a new pull request, and a few seconds later, the PR review webhook starts running. I'm going to hide this to make it bigger, and we can see it's run the prompt. It's got the pull request, and I want to see if it's actually cloned the repo. So if you go down here, it's cloned 2 repos. It can see the PR review skill, and now it's running the PR review skill on that PR. And I forgot to add my GitHub token, which is something I explicitly asked for in the skill. But it's used the GitHub MCP tool instead, which is great. It's noticed the diff is minimal, and it finished reviewing the PR. So if we go back to the PR, we can see Claude has added a comment saying automated review complete and no issues found. But unfortunately, because this wasn't a test run, this has actually used up 1 of my 5 runs a day, and so I can only run 5 automated PR review checks every single day. But it looks like you get 15 runs in the 20x max plan. So will I be using more of Claude routines in the future? Very unlikely. I mean, for what it is, it's very expensive. Okay, if I had a lot of money and I was paying for multiple 20x max accounts, then sure, I'd run routines all the time. But right now, it's much cheaper for me to configure webhooks with something like Hermes Agent, or to use Multica with Hermes Agent on a cheaper model like GLM 5.1 or a GPT coding model. However, I will admit it's so much easier to create multiple routines using the setup I showed earlier than to do everything from scratch using Hermes and Multica. I mean, that would take a long time, even with an LLM to help me out. But even if I did have a lot of money, I wouldn't say routines are for every type of automation. As you saw earlier, you just give a routine 1 prompt and it's supposed to do everything from that. I mean, okay, yes, if you are very technical, you could add extra skills and extra prompts to a repo, get the routine to clone that repo, and then chain these prompts together to have a more complicated routine. But it still costs a lot of money. You can't get past that. I will admit, however, that it feels like Anthropic are leading onto something bigger with all these cloud features that they're adding recently. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what it is. Speaking of cloud features, if you want to see how quick and easy it is to create and deploy an agent in minutes using the Claude Managed Agents feature, then check out this video.